Good afternoon, Dominic. Thank you for getting involved in our NI Business Podcast this week. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us all about what you're doing?
Yeah, as you know, I'm Dominic. I'm the CEO of eXRt Intelligent Healthcare, and really we're on a mission to provide accessible rehabilitation to neurological conditions, so that they can live a more independent and higher quality of life. Simply because the healthcare systems are finding that we're struggling to actually deliver the level of rehabilitation that these patients actually need. And that's not for the want of trying. There's a huge effort going on, but just with high demand and limited resources, this can't be done. And really, how we do this is through virtual reality. So patient will put the VR headset. We build unique software that allows them to do the rehabilitation, playing fun, motivating games, and we track all their data, we assess their performance, and we automatically adapt it for the patient. But also we have that remote monitoring feature essentially, where we send that back to their therapist so that they can see and be accountable for the rehabilitation, and then therapists can have that information when it's not really possible to have when patients are at home or elsewhere.
It's a fantastic example of how VR can be used to good effect in the real world, isn't it? And who would be your customer then? Would it be the patient or the therapist?
I think really the customer for us is healthcare providers, and in particular that's the end user or the end users essentially would be the therapists and the patients that to be delivering it. And really our system's designed to be used within the care pathway from right when the person has, say for example, a stroke, um, from day one, and they're fit to do rehabilitation, right through to they go home to continue and be discharged. To have that essentially what a lot of healthcare systems are moving to is that community or hospital in the community,
Yes.
that the sort of philosophy, and that's what we've really pushed with for and built into our system, that these are the healthcare providers will provide this to the patient, and then they can take it home if they want to and use it.
Awesome. And how like you sort of touched on, like there's a massive effort, but the current systems are creaking under the pressure. So does this save a lot of like human input or a lot of time for the therapist then?
Yeah, it definitely does. Just to go back a bit in terms of the amount of effort that we need to do to rehabilitate the neurological patients, for example, for
Yeah.
there's brand new guidelines come out there just this 2023 that patients need to have 3 hours of rehabilitation. Now, last when the old guidelines were out in 2016, that was 45 minutes. So that's a huge jump that a therapist has to deliver and a
Sure.
patient has to endure for 3 hours of
Yeah.
rehabilitation. It's just not feasible. So so the idea for our system is that patients will get more rehabilitation in less time. So
Yes.
that rehab intensity, and that's the key to recovery, that intensity. So less time, but more rehabilitation. And that it also means that our system can be used with number of patients at the same time. So if a therapist is treating two patients at once, for example, stick two headsets
Okay.
on them, and they can treat them the exact same way. So you're doubling capacity effectively.
Yeah, yeah. And is it what makes it so effective? How can they get more rehab in less time? Is it because it's so bespoke, or is it because they can just get a better insight into what the patient needs?
It's the motivation. It's
Okay.
a lot of patients will they'll do the rehabilitations and conventionally with a therapist, um, and there's an element of fear. There's a psychological factor there that they might get hurt. But whenever you put that headset on and you see you're playing a fun game,
Yeah.
and like you've probably played games before, as a big gamer, that you could spend hours on on playing a
Yeah. So
game.
they're not focused on the rehab, they're focused on their
They're
mind
focused
is
on the
distracted.
game, and
Yeah.
by good design that we've done is they don't know they're doing the rehabilitation.
Yeah.
So that makes it so much better that we can do that, and then they can encourage them. The games encourage them to do more rehabilitation. So that's
Yeah.
how
It's
we
not
do
such an
that.
arduous task then.
No, exactly. They tend to do more of it, and actually they tend to do
Cool.
more movement, actually more range of
Yes.
movement when they're not conscious of their body outside
Yeah.
in the real world, which is
Awesome. So it
cool.
sounds it's such an interesting, such an innovative use for VR, and you can tell your passion for it comes through there as well. So tell me a bit more about your journey so far into business. How did the whole thing kick off? How did you
Uh,
come across this?
yeah. Well, like to start off, I've always wanted to have a business, but maybe not. I never really thought about this type of business, to be
Sure.
honest. I was always in the computing science background. So I've done my undergraduate at Ulster University, done my PhD, particularly in stroke rehabilitation and VR. And that's really where it all started. And the only reason I got into my PhD was the fact that I seen my granny had a stroke and struggling to do the rehabilitation.
Mm,
And then since then, over COVID, my father's had a stroke and my uncle's had a stroke. So it's just driving me more to
sure.
hopefully help more patients. But yeah, we started my PhD. I finished that. I was a researcher on a clinical trial that we used my PhD, the software from my PhD. From that, we done clinical trial. We got really good results from that, and I thought, well, or university says, well, these are good results. Let's go ahead with them and see what we can do. And I thought,
Brilliant.
rather than sitting on the shelf, let's just get it out there, and
Yeah.
we've just been working ever since.
And when was that then, Dominic?
That was we spun out of the company in March 22.
Okay.
Um
So just over 3 years in.
yeah. And
What's that journey been like? Because I mean, you're not just start a business; you're trying to do something nobody's ever done before. Is that right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a challenge definitely. And there's a lot of things when you're a small company, you have to wear a lot of hats, don't you? So
Sure.
the whole fundraising type of thing is a new venture for me, and quite scary sometimes because you're promising a lot, and you hopefully that you deliver, but um where my skills lie is in the technical side. So
Sure.
we've really built a really good product, and we're really confident that it will work. And as a CEO, then it's my job then to bring in to try and bring in those sales, those early sales at least,
Yeah.
with a small team that we have, and commercialize this as best as possible. So yeah, it's been a
So
challenge, but also really enjoyable.
what's and you've got good purpose behind you as well. You know, you said about your
Yeah.
family members and stuff probably helps with the resilience. But what would you say has been your biggest learning in those last 3 years? And with it as being a business owner.
Um, one of the key words you just said there was resilience. Is just keep
Mhm.
persevering. And you'll get a lot of no's before you get yeses.
Yeah.
And that's something you really need to understand really quickly. And take on constructive criticism,
Yeah.
as much as possible. Learn from other people, because if you had seen me whenever I was just a new CEO in quotation marks,
I know what you mean.
the the I'm a far cry from what I am now, and I've still got loads of work to do and loads of
Sure.
learning to do. So, I always try to absorb as much as possible.
And what about then? Resilience is what you've had to learn as a new CEO, as you said. What about you as a person then? What have you learned about yourself?
As a person, really, maybe it's hard to say. I don't tend to think too much. Personally, I just drive on.
Don't have time.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's probably I've taken more risks, which I'd be sort of in certain, a box essentially where
Yeah,
I'd like
yeah,
to be comfortable, but take those risks and and go with them. And sometimes what I've noticed is you sometimes you have to go out and you have to set goals for yourself, and some of those goals are public, and that's probably encourages you, that motivates you a little bit more. If they're out there,
yeah.
then you have to actually achieve them.
A
And
bit of accountability then.
yeah, and what I've seen is once you do that, you're more driven to actually achieve those goals, which is great. It's
Yeah.
great to
So
see.
you're quite goal orientated then.
Yeah, yeah, we I tend to set myself a lot of goals, and try and see them as quick as possible, but not
Cool.
always the same. And you don't always meet your goals, so you just have to understand that you just move on.
And what about so that's back to that resilience then, isn't it? What
Yeah.
about what's I mean, this is going to be a difficult question for you, but what would you say is the biggest challenge you're facing right now? 3 years in, it sounds like you've done a few raises, but it's built a bit of team. But
Yeah.
what's your biggest challenge right now?
Well, I suppose you're talking about raises. We haven't actually done hardly any raises, so
Okay.
mainly sort of funded elsewhere. We've done a small raise, um, but I think that is probably one of our challenges now because we've understood that at the stage of our company, and you're looking at VR, which is always in question. Is it useful? Is it not? Back then when we were starting to develop it, it was like it was a it was a big craze. All VR is really cool and everything else, but it's a bit like AI now. There's loads of AI, but they don't know how to use it, and is it secure and everything else. It's the same for VR, maybe not as big an impact. So we knew that this was going to be probably a longer journey, and that's that was our challenge to manage that. And so taking on a lot of private investment at that stage would have been a real struggle for us. So we've managed, and now we're out raising now, and that's probably our current challenge is just getting that raise. And I think that's just normal for every startup company.
Yeah.
Just again, the resilience of that resilience.
And back to taking a risk as well.
Yeah, and being able to take a lot of no's.
Yeah.
Exactly. Um, and we're making traction,
Cool.
slowly but surely, but we're getting there.
So tell me about them. What's 5 years look like for you guys? Where's eXRt going to be in 5 years' time?
I would love, in terms of commercially, I would love us to be helping patients in the NHS, have a real good community around the whole product and showing that it's helping people, but also want to be in a global scale, working towards that global scale at least, and helping a lot more people. A lot more people. There's a lot more challenges out there that our system or product can actually help with. And in terms of product, we see we're not just VR, so
Okay.
we have a visions to go beyond that.
Cool.
So we hope that we can reach more people, and our mission is access. So give people access to this, and that might not be VR, might be other ways that we can do it.
Brilliant. Awesome. And again, vision is just going to be the thing that drives you. Drive vision and purpose, the two things that are going to keep you on the track, aren't they? So
Yeah,
like I always like to finish on this question, Dominic. What would be if you could go back and speak to an 18-year-old Dominic? What would be the piece of advice you would give him?
I would probably say take more risks.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, I've always yeah, I would say take more risk and see where it goes. Because I think from looking back from when I'm in this company as a CEO, I had to learn to take risks and
Yeah.
not be feared to do that.
Yeah.
And if I had that when I was 18, that would have been less of a challenge for me. So yeah, the
You'd have been
risks.
better prepared for where you are now.
Yeah,
Very cool. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on today. It sounds like it's such an interesting venture and real potential in it. So I'll definitely be watching to see how you guys get on. Hopefully you are on that global stage in a few years' time. And look, thank you so much for sharing the journey so far.
thank you very much, Scott. It's nice to have or to speak to you, and nice to be there. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you.